Alright, welcome to the video. In today's video I want to give you guys some quick considerations before pulling for JIAOQIU. The main points I want to go through are the 4 stars as well as the Litecoin banner, his teams, his eidolons, his alternatives, and then future characters. So without further ado, let's get into it. The character he is running with is Sparkle, who is a Quantum Harmony character. Both of them are pretty good, I'd say. I don't really think there's anything to compare really because they are 2 different units. One of them buffs the team and the other debuffs the enemy. However, one fun thing is that you are actually able to run both of them on a Acheron team, with Acheron, JIAOQIU, Sparkle, and a Sustainer. So that's also one thing to keep in mind. Instead of comparing them, you can actually run them together. Now for the 4 stars, we have Hook, Arlen, and Guinaifen. I just want to go straight to the point. I think we all know that Hook and Arlen are very bad units, and they're not really that worth building since that they are DPS characters, and we have a lot of better options in terms of DPS, both 4-star and 5-star characters. Now for Guinaifen, she is pretty interesting. You can use her in a dot team if you don't have Black Swan. She also has the ability to make your team do more damage with her Fire Kiss, I think it is. But other than that, I don't really see any other scenarios where you want to use her, since Kafka and Black Swan in itself is also very good, and the 3rd character is probably going to be Runmei or Robin. And then for the 4th, it's probably going to be a Sustain. So I don't really see a place where you can use Guinaifen unless you are missing Black Swan. All in all, if I should give a rating for the 4-star characters, I would give it a 3 out of 10. Since Hook and Arlen is really dragging the team down, and Guinaifen is sort of just a very mid character. And I also think that banner could get worse if we swap Guinaifen out with like Dan Hang or something. So I think a 3 out of 10 is pretty fair. So if you're pulling for JIAOQIU, you might actually pull for his Litecoin as well. So I will quickly go over the Litecoin banner, and then I will go over his other Litecoin options if you're not going to pull on his Litecoin banner. I'm not really going to go over the Litecoin, but it's definitely his best in slot option. I want to go over the 4-star Litecoins. Eyes of the Prey, a very good alternative for JIAOQIU. A Secret Vow is also pretty decent, but you can definitely get better options, especially the one in the Herta shop. But a Secret Vow is definitely not bad. It's a pretty great staple to have if you don't have better options. And then we have the new Litecoin Poised in Bloom, and if you don't know what it does, I will just quickly read it out. The Litecoin is for Harmony characters, and it increases the wearer's attack by 16%. And then upon entering battle, if 2 or more characters follow the same path, these characters' crit damage increases by 16%, and the ability does not stack. The only character I can see really using this Litecoin is Robin, since she is able to benefit from the attack increase, and she's also able to be run in a dual DPS comp. Notably the follow-up team with Robin, Topaz, Dr. Ratio, and Aventurine. But all in all, I do think the Litecoin banner is alright. If you don't get JIAOQIU's Litecoin, you can definitely use the Eyes of the Prey as a great alternative. I do think that generally just any Litecoin with effect hit rate will benefit JIAOQIU. So if you're not planning to pull on his Litecoin banner, you can just use any Litecoin with EHR and it should be fine. Now let's move on to his teams. He has one team that everyone's talking about, which is the Acheron team. With him, Acheron, and then another Nihility character as well as a Sustainer. And obviously if you have an E2 Acheron, then it's just gonna be JIAOQIU as well as a Harmony character and then a Sustainer. This team is definitely very strong since Acheron herself does a lot of damage, but also it's very strong because JIAOQIU is obviously able to debuff the enemies a lot, which of course Acheron needs to get her ultimate up. Another team you can use as well is a dot team with Kafka, Black Swan, JIAOQIU, and a Sustainer. It sounds pretty decent, however I do think that you would benefit more from just having a Harmony character instead of JIAOQIU. For example like a Robin or a Runmei. But the team can definitely work with JIAOQIU for sure. Since we're talking about teams, I do quickly want to go over alternatives for JIAOQIU himself, because as a Nihility character he does debuff the enemies, and you do have a lot of other Nihility characters that's also able to debuff the enemies. Since people are mainly going to run him with Acheron, you can honestly just use other Nihility characters. However, you will be missing out on the 15% ultimate vulnerability. I do think that if you are against an enemy who spawns mobs, or you're in pure fiction, you can have a higher ultimate uptime for Acheron, since he's able to apply debuff whenever they enter battle. So that's also another thing to keep in mind. And if you're going to run him in a dot team, as I mentioned before, you can just use a Harmony character as an alternative, notably Runmei and Robin. Now my next 2 points are his eidolons as well as future characters. I'm gonna quickly go over his eidolons real quick. I do think that they're very strong, but if you're going to go for his eidolons, I think that E1 is fine. You don't have to go for E2, E4 or E6, but his E6 and E1 is definitely the strong points of his eidolons. But I don't really think you need any eidolons if you're going to pull for him anyways, because he is fine as he is. But if you're going to go for eidolons, I do think that E1 is completely fine. And now last but not least, the future characters. As we have all seen from the drip marketing as well as the story. The next two characters that we are going to get are Ling Sha as well as Fei Xiao. Fei Xiao will be part 1 and Ling Sha will be part 2. And of course we're also getting a new 4-star. If you're missing a DPS character, you should definitely consider pulling for Fei Xiao since she is the new DPS character. Another thing is their compatibility. I don't think that JIAOQIU and Fei Xiao really work that well together. So if you're planning to pull for JIAOQIU because of Fei Xiao, I don't think that's a very great idea. The part 2 is Ling Sha, who is a fire abundance. And to be honest, I don't really think that they work that well together either. So if you're planning to pull JIAOQIU for Ling Sha, I don't really think that's a great idea either. However, that doesn't mean that either one is worse than the other. I'm not saying that Fei Xiao is better than JIAOQIU, and I'm not saying that Ling Sha is better than JIAOQIU either. It's more so just considerations for people who might think that JIAOQIU would work great together with Fei Xiao, since they are companions in the story. So in conclusion, if you really like the Acheron team, I do think that JIAOQIU is actually a very great option. He's not really needed in the Acheron team, however he is definitely an upgrade. So if you care about that, I do think that you could consider pulling for JIAOQIU. However, I do think that pulling for JIAOQIU outside of Acheron teams isn't really worth it, even in the dot team, since as I mentioned, you can't just use a Harmony character. An example could be Runmei, who is pretty much one of the most popular characters in terms of meta. But then again, you are using Runmei on the Super Break team, so maybe you don't have a Runmei for the dot team, but at that point you can just use Asta or you can use a Robin. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know if you're going to pull for him. Leave a comment down below, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.